Most of us know people who overspend, right? They may complain about not having enough money to pay rent or how expensive everything is, but then they're the same ones that show up with the new designer purse or take that spur of the moment trip. Now, there's nothing wrong with enjoying your life now, right? But it's just interesting how some people don't have that balance of being able to make sure they're making good decisions now so that they can not only enjoy the present moment, but also enjoy their retirement. Those same people are the ones that when they do lose their job, they don't have an emergency reserve. And then what do? They come to us wanting money. Or their partner dies unexpectedly and they didn't realize how much debt they have or how little life insurance. The issue can just be disastrous, especially when they're coming to you asking you for money for food or for utilities or for rent. Oh, I've heard all the stories. And then they continue to complain about not having enough money, especially after people have bailed them out. And I have heard so many of these stories that I thought, I'm going to do a podcast on this. Today's question comes from Angela. It comes from so many different people other than just Angela. She wants to know how to handle family and friends who overspend and then ask you for money. And it's a question, as I mentioned, I've been asked so many times in my career. I've designed today's episode to help not only all my loyal followers, but also my family and friends, because this is something that so many people have shared with me as an issue in their family. So if you want to know how to handle this situation and help the person make better choices, you're going to love today's episode. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Annette Bau, host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast and founder of the Millionaire Insider. My mission is to help you simplify the money game so you can create a financially secure and fulfilled life without having to have a PhD or spend countless hours on your finances. You're going to learn how to think like a millionaire, stop worrying about money and wondering if your financial house is truly in order, and instead spend your time doing what you love. With over 3 decades advising 7, 8, and even 9-figure millionaires, and now joining that elite group, I'm in a unique position to help you make the best financial choices so you can create a secure financial future and retirement you love. This is the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. If you'd like to take our free financial checkup, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/FC. Most people understand the importance of medical checkup, and yet so few people do a financial checkup, but it's basically the same thing. Annually or every 2 years, doing a real deep dive into your finances to make sure everything's okay. Your spending plan, your insurance, your tax plan, your retirement plan, your estate plan, all of the above. You're going to be so glad you did. And this free checkup is going to help to make sure you're on track. So again, themillionaireinsider.com/FC. Today's free resource is our magical affluent budget template. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/MBT. After years of seeing people struggle with their spending plan, and this includes broke and wealthy people, I created a budget that basically breaks down the wants and needs. It is priceless. It's going to help you really look at the categories and where you're spending money so you can determine if there are areas you're overspending, as well as how to save more money. Now, if you don't need it, I encourage you to give it to somebody you know who does, whether it's a family or friend. You're going to be glad you did, and so are they. You can access it at themillionaireinsider.com/MBT. For today's resources and show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/74. All materials and intellectual property are copywritten by themillionaireseries.com. This information is for educational purposes only. It's not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or to provide any investment, financial, tax, retirement, planning, or healthcare advice. So let's dive into when family and friends overspend. This is what I want to get really clear on. I've heard so many people share, I have a friend or a family member who is a spendthrift, and they won't listen to me. Well, my friends, we're all in the same boat. It is so amazing how many people over the course of my career have come to me and said, oh my gosh, we just don't have enough money. Now, this is what I do. And we're going to get into this in more depth, but this is what I do. Would you like my recommendations or my ideas? I'm always careful not to say advice because I don't really have an advisory relationship. And they say yes, always. And I'm like, are you sure you want my input? Absolutely. I've never had anyone say no. So then what I basically say is, you got to look at where you're spending money, where you can cut back and prioritize. What's really important that you want to do? What can you give up? What hobbies can you incorporate that don't cost money? And then start getting a plan down so that you've got emergency reserves. So you've got a retirement plan and just give them a little overview depending on what they've shared. 9 times out of 10, the excuses start flowing in. Oh, but you don't understand. That's the first one. You don't understand. You don't understand my situation. My partner is a spendthrift. You don't understand. The cost of goods has gone way up. And then the excuses just start flowing in. It's like, okay, well then keep doing what you're doing. Now, I don't say that, even though that's what I'm thinking. Keep doing what you're doing. Call me in a year and let me know how it turns out. That's my favorite line to say to myself. And we kind of have a joke with some of my peers of saying, well, then just keep doing what you're doing. Because the reality of it is, this is the insanity part of it. They want a different outcome. They want a different result, but they don't want to change their behavior. And we know from Einstein that is truly the definition of insanity. This is really important. And for any of you who are empaths or you feel like, oh my gosh, we got a responsibility to help others. I mean, it is so hard. My personality, being a financial advisor, knowing what a person needs to do and being able to just zip it up and accept that they're going to end up where they're going to end up. And if that is a broke retirement, it's a broke retirement. And I get how hard that is. It is just like running fingernails down a chalkboard. But the bottom line is you can meet someone halfway. I just had this conversation with a beneficiary of one of my clients. I said, I'll meet you halfway, but I'm meeting halfway. You got to meet me halfway. And even if I go 55%, you still have to come to 45%. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. I can't do that. It was kind of like, wow, that was like a jar. And, a lot of financial planners may not say that, but my job, and I see this very clearly, is that my job is to help a person where they are right now and make sure that they stay okay for the rest of their lives. That's what I get hired for. And that's why sometimes I have to have tough conversations. That said, I can't tell you how many people that I've encountered, mostly family friends, people I know, or friends of friends, start telling me their entire life story. But the bottom line is they just want to basically tell you how hard it is and have you say, oh, I'm so sorry. And oh, yes, this is a problem. They're not really looking for a solution. That's why I always say, are you sure you want my input? Oh, absolutely. Right, you're sure you want my input. Yeah. And then I give it. And before you even have 5 words out of your mouth, they're telling you why it won't work. So depending on how well you know the person, you could be direct and say, well, then just keep doing what you're doing and see if it works out. I mean, that's one option. And I'd say it really nicely, unless you think that person needs to have a punch in between the eyes to wake them up. Or you can say, I think you should get a money coach or a financial therapist or something like that. I'm not going to continue to engage in it because all it does then is bring me down. It's like, fine, we've had a conversation. If it works, great. And if it doesn't, that's fine too. Let's dive into a little bit of the underlying psychology, because I think a lot of times people don't understand why people overspend, overdrink, overeat, overindulge to begin with. Our brain is designed to seek pleasure. And when it finds something that makes us feel good, it wants more. Discipline and moderation require a mature adult brain. That prefrontal cortex that we've got to have to be able to pause, to be able to not say what that spur of the moment thing we want to say is. When our loved ones are living from their primal child brain, they commonly don't have a developed or a prefrontal cortex that's in charge of their decisions. They're governed by emotions and the pleasure and how they feel when they partake in the action, whether it's overdrinking, overspending, overeating, whatever it may be. This means that you've got to be the adult and refrain from supporting behaviors that won't serve them long term. Absolutely critical. One of the things that's so important to understand about overindulgence is a lot of people think it's about the food or about the alcohol or about the money. It's really about your emotions. Like, this is a $1 billion nugget. It's processing emotions. And so my biggest issue has been food. And the thing about it that's crazy is that I've never been like overweight. And right now I weigh literally 10 pounds less than I weighed probably a year and a half ago because I started processing my emotions and I stopped eating emotionally. Now, just because most people would look at me and not think like, oh, you need to lose weight. And people are like, oh, how do you stay in such good shape? And I'm like, well, I'd really like to lose about, I wanted to lose 5 pounds. Just, I don't know, just a number I had in my head. And I thought, oh, I'd like to lose that. It wasn't really like I had to. But what I noticed when I started really being aware of my emotions was when I felt stressed or overwhelmed, which I feel when I'm not getting enough sleep. It's so interesting. Whenever I start feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or even a little depressed, I've never really felt like severely depressed, but when I feel a little off kilter, I always can circle it back around to sleep. It's just fascinating, and diet. But my diet now is super clean. So sleep for me is just critical. And it is for a lot of people. But the issue is when you start sitting in that emotion of feeling overwhelmed or feeling anxious or frustrated or whatever it may be, it's typically a negative emotion that drives us to take action on those behaviors. Because if we were feeling really good and joyful and happy and all those dopamine high chemicals, we wouldn't be over drinking or overeating or overspending. But when we feel down, we feel exhausted, we feel just exasperated, whatever it may be, that's oftentimes when we go for that pleasure. And that's what I would do. I'd find myself at night, I wasn't even hungry. I wasn't even slightly hungry, and I'm eating. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I mean, like the concept never even occurred to me that when like I'm full, I stop eating. Like I never have done that in my entire life. I just keep eating because it tastes good. It was just so interesting now I've got a real regimented eating protocol. I eat twice a day and I feel better than I've felt my entire life. I have more energy. It's just fascinating. But the same thing is overspending. We've got to learn how to process our emotions. And the one issue you got to do when it comes to your emotions is you've got to be able to sit in it and just observe. See what most people tell you. And what I would always tell people is, go do something to like distract yourself, like go have a cup of tea or go take a walk. And the problem is that works short term, but it's not training our primal brain to be okay being uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is a game changer. And what I found for me, when I decided I was really going to take the bull by the horn when it came to emotional eating and just eating because I was bored. Like, what else is there to do? Why don't we just eat, right? What I found is that the first 2 weeks, it was crazy, the thoughts that came to me. I was having these thoughts like, I could starve to death. I could die. Like I might not have enough food. I won't be able to finish the day strong. It was just fascinating. And what I find, which is so interesting, which a lot of research shares, is that actually when you're doing intermittent fasting, it's so good for so many aspects of your health, but I'm also so much more focused and clear. And it's like, what? Wait a minute. I thought that, I have to eat these, 3 meals a day plus 2 snacks. Like who created that? I would love to do some research and find out who created that. Like where you have basically 5 meals a day. Oh, of course, 2 of them. Well, no, you got to have one before bed. So really 3 meals a day plus 3 snacks. Just fascinating. What I found is after I got used to being uncomfortable and I got in that situation where it was like I was hungry and I still didn't have to eat. Because what happens is about 2 or 3, I do get kind of hungry. Now I just don't eat until dinner. And I just feel so much better. And what ended up happening is it carried over into other areas of my life, doing uncomfortable things, not procrastinating, getting jobs done. One I'm working on right now is overworking, really getting better at that, like actually having days where I just like do nothing. I actually forgot my computer when we went up to our cabin 2 weeks ago. And it was so nice to just sit there and really have nothing to do. It was so pleasant. I just really enjoyed myself, went on hikes, read some, just kind of putted around. Oh, I took on some projects of painting. It was just great. But the point being is we got to get those emotions under control if we want to deal with these overindulgences. So you've got to understand that. What can you do with a family member who overspends and doesn't have a plan? So we're going to shift to that, but I do want to just really encourage you that anything you can do to help them better process their emotions and to actually feel what they're feeling and get comfortable with it is going to help so much, probably even more than anything else I give you. That said, we're going to talk a little bit about things you can do, being the adult, being the person who's making decisions from your prefrontal cortex versus your primal child brain. The first one is just set boundaries. Now, this is absolutely critical. Most people will come to you when they're out of money. What you have to understand, what they have to understand is that the poor choices that caused their situation could have been avoided by better decisions upstream. Once you start giving them money, it can be very difficult to stop bailing them out. So you got to be really careful if you give money, and you've got to set clear written expectations on how they're going to pay you back if they are, and you're going to require that, as well as their move forward plan. And interestingly enough, I've never had anyone really close to me come and ask me for money, but I have had people who know me and people that are distant friends come and ask me for money, some that I've known for a long time. It's interesting because I'm just thinking of one particular situation. And I said, I'm happy to help you. And I knew he was going to inherit some money. And I said, I am more than happy to help you create a plan so that you've got things in place. Now, I didn't say if I was going to give him money or not, because I wanted him to, first of all, commit to the plan. And he said, oh, no, I don't need any help with what I'm going to inherit. I just need money right now. I need help with groceries. I need help with rent. I need help with all this stuff. And I said, well, I'm more than happy to help you create a plan. That's what I can offer you. What I did end up saying is I said, my husband and I just don't make it a habit of giving money to family and friends because we don't want that to strain our relationship. Had he moved forward and created a plan, I would have definitely helped him out with groceries and utilities and probably even rent, but I wasn't about to without him having a plan. And I thought it was so interesting that, he knew he was going to get money. He could create a plan, could do something about it, but no, he just wanted money. He knew that I had some money so that I could potentially help him. That's something that you got to be aware of. Now, if you do give them money, get them to commit to create and follow the plan. One of my clients loaned her sister money who was struggling. And the agreement was this: the sister would track spending, start saving 5%, and stop smoking. The plan was that she would reduce her smoking and save money and ultimately be able to stop. A huge amount of this sister's money was going towards cigarettes, a huge amount. And the sister agreed. And then she did nothing, absolutely nothing. And my client was livid. The next ask from the sister, and this is my client sharing this with me, was a thank you so much for asking me. Unfortunately, I'm not able to help you at this time. And she repeated that a few times until she stopped asking. The bottom line is you got to have clear boundaries. They've got to execute. If they don't, then you don't give them money. Now, whether you make them pay you back or not is up to you. For me, I don't have a problem helping somebody out if I feel like helping them out. But if I feel I'm helping them out just to keep them stuck in that cycle, I don't. I think it's an absolute nightmare because it's never going to end. Now, if you leave money to a spendthrift, ideally you want to require that that money will be invested in guaranteed income. So they're going to have an income stream for their life, but never access to the principal. It will be a disaster if you give them access to the principal. Now, this is critical. It's kind of like an alcoholic. No one would give an alcoholic an alcohol store, right? And so you got to be careful with money with a spendthrift. Now, generally speaking, you would set that up in an annuity that's in a trust. Now, it's really important. It's in a trust so they can't liquidate it. And then you have an independent trustee. We have created these plans for over 15 years, and I have seen them work so well that we actually now have it set up for our kids, especially some of them that have a tendency of spending more than others. Some of our clients, their kids would have been on the street if they did not have this money. Now, they're not wealthy. They're able to maintain the basic essentials: shelter, food, utilities. So important. So the next thing is to be the example. When a person is a spendthrift, having a positive role model that provides an example can be priceless. Some other tips that can be powerful. One is brain mapping. And I am fascinated with brain mapping because what they're finding in the research is that if a person is an alcoholic, and let's just say they go through therapy and they're no longer an alcoholic, if they don't get their brain remapped, they then start being an overspender or an overeater. So brain mapping can be really powerful. Another one is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's a lot about processing those emotions. Another one, and I don't know a lot of the science behind it, but tapping. A lot of people share that tapping is really powerful. I think it might be powerful. Again, this is just my theory. It's not a study or anything, is that it unlocks emotion. So it can be helpful. And then even medication. Some people that overdrink, overspend, overeat really need medication because it's more of an issue of processing emotions or the fact that their brain is not working right. So just some ideas. So there you have it. Now, if you have a loved one who is an overspender, you're not alone. I encourage you to go back and follow these steps, and it's going to become much more manageable and really help to contribute to their recovery if they do have a spending addiction, really if they have any addiction. I mean, this applies whether it's food or spending or whatever it is. Now, obviously with food, it's a little different, but even alcohol, it's like not making the theme alcohol and just being aware of things you can do to be an example and to be a role model. So let's recap. Number one, you got to set clear boundaries. Oh, so important. 2, require that they create and follow a plan before you give them any money. If they violate the agreement, you really need to consider if you're going to give them more money. Like an alcoholic, if they start drinking, or a drug addict, they start doing drugs, you've got to cut them off. You've got to put down the boundaries, because otherwise what ends up happening is the odds that they're going to recover are slim to none. If you're leaving a spendthrift money, give it to them in a guaranteed income stream. This is typically an annuity inside a trust, and don't let them access the principal. That is so important. There are ways in which you can set it up to where if they have an emergency, you can have what's known as HAMS, health, education, maintenance, and support inside the trust. But you just got to be really careful that those provisions, typically you want them pretty strict, because somebody that's a spendthrift will have an emergency every single day. And then you want to be the example. Being the example is so critical. When you show up and you do the heavy lifting and they see that you're able to do it, it gives them courage and hope that they can do it too. Depending on the person, giving them encouragement, being there for them can just be priceless. So I encourage you to really look at these different options and then see what works for you. And more importantly, make sure that whatever you do works for you, because I see a lot of people who are giving money to their kids at the risk of their own retirement. It's not ideal. Most people don't want to live a broke retirement. So you got to start making better decisions today to ensure that you have a bright financial future. So if you want a financial checkup, just like you get a medical checkup, I really encourage you to take our financial checkup. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/FC. Making a financial checkup part of your annual plan is critical to creating a financially secure life you love. So go do it. themillionaireinsider.com/FC. If you love the content of this podcast, please follow and subscribe to our channel so you get notified of episodes, and also give us a 5-star review and share a comment. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on taking another step to create a financially free life you love. If you're not sure about your financial future or that it's in order, or you are ready to stop worrying about money, or possibly the fear of becoming a bag lady, ending up broke in retirement, or you simply are ready to know your financial house is in order so that you can have a bright financial future, please go to themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. And that doesn't stand for non-sufficient funds. It stands for Next Step Finance. It's the next best step of what you need to do so you can avoid an NSF notice in your future. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. The number of women who were not broke or poor while working or married is staggering. The entire mission of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast is to ensure you have the information for you, your family, your friends, anyone who's willing to listen to it and apply it so that you can create a financially free life you love. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. Until our next episode, take one action that will help you create a financially free life you love. I'm Annette Ba'u, your host. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.